As we think about the coming of Jesus Christ, we light the candle of love.
How great is the love the Father has lavished on us. This is how God showed his love. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. A new command I give to you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. All men will know you are my disciples if you love one another.
But that little son, that little baby was going to need a loving father. And so this morning we're going to turn our attention to Joseph, the one that God chose to be the loving father for Jesus on earth. We'll be starting out in Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 to 25. Now the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from his sleep, he did as the angel commanded him and took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. Joseph is called a righteous man. He's trying to follow God's will for his life, but he's thrown a huge curveball. The woman he's planning to marry is expecting a baby, and he knows it's not his. Can you put yourself into his shoes? I think he was probably feeling confused and betrayed, humiliated, angry, devastated. But in the midst of all those strong feelings, he still cared about Mary. He could have put her through an ordeal in front of all the people in the town and had some revenge, but his righteousness kept him from making that choice. Instead, he decided to divorce Mary quietly, to save as much dignity as he could. He was acting righteously as God is righteous. He knows what's right, what's just, but also quick to show mercy and compassion, to be able to feel for the other person and not be eager to punish them. Joseph loved God, and I believe he loved Mary, and maybe at this point in his life he thought he had to choose between them. Am I going to follow God, or I'm going to go ahead and marry her? But fortunately, God sent an angel with a message for Joseph. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Now, in this account, we don't know if Mary had told Joseph anything of the circumstances of why she was expecting a baby. It could be the very first time that he heard the story. Or maybe Mary had tried to tell him, but it was such an incredible, hard-to-believe story that he needed the angel to say, yes, what she said is true. Whichever was the case, Joseph had an invitation from God to be the father of Jesus, the person whose very name means Yahweh will save us. Love moves us to embrace. The first thing it led Joseph to embrace was God's plans for his life and to be able to let go of some of his own plans. He was probably building a house for himself and for Mary, and maybe as he fashioned those rooms, he imagined the children that they would have one day together, and they would be his and hers. He probably didn't plan on starting a family very soon, not before the wedding for sure. But despite his dashed expectations, Joseph was also invited to embrace Mary and the baby she was carrying. If he did as the angel asked and invited him to do, his life would take a wildly different course from what he had ever envisioned. How was he, a simple carpenter, going to be a good father for the Son of God? As soon as Joseph woke from his dream, he did what the angel told him. He and Mary became husband and wife, and Joseph treated her with respect and with tenderness. From Luke, we know that they took a long trip to Bethlehem because they needed to go to the city where his family was from, and he was a descendant of David. So evidently being the parents of God's Son doesn't mean they get a pass and everything's going to be easy. In fact, when they got there, there wasn't even anyone who would take them in, even for Mary to give birth. Joseph must have wondered, why? Why does Mary have to give birth in a stable? But it didn't shake his faith in God's plan. He held that tiny baby in his arms and named him Jesus. And in that moment, the Son of God became a legal son and descendant of King David. It was sort of like an adoption. And it reminded me of our friends in Maine. This is the Lakey family. We knew them when the girls were much smaller. They're good friends with my girls. And they just felt like they had more love to share than the 3 girls that God gave them. And they thought it would be really fun to have some boys in the family. So they went through the process of becoming registered to be foster parents, all the hoops and checking out and all of those things. And they were ready to even take more than one child. And the foster agency said, well, we have more than one child for you. We have 2 twin girls, and they're 3 years old, right in the midst of potty training. But they knew that even though it wasn't what they had imagined, having some boys to balance out all those girls, it was what God was asking them to do. And they embraced the 2 little girls, and now they're part of their family officially. They've been adopted. And this is what the Lakey family looks like now, with all 5 girls. So I'm wondering, who might God be inviting you to embrace and love? Discernment's important. Thinking and praying and waiting for God to lead, but so is an openness to love the people that God brings into your life, and a willingness to follow God's plan as it unfolds step by step. Joseph didn't miss the amazing chance to be part of God's redemption story, but it wasn't a once and done choice for Joseph either. Love would continue to move him. It seems that Mary and Joseph might have decided to live in Bethlehem after the birth of the baby. Maybe he started a little carpentry business to support the family. Bethlehem was only 6 miles from Jerusalem, so that would give him a great chance to bring Jesus to worship at the temple, for him to learn Hebrew, to learn everything he needed to know for whatever was going to happen later in his life. But then their quiet life was shaken up by a surprising visit from some wise men from the east. They had been following a star that led them to worship the new little king. Unfortunately, they first stopped at the palace, and King Herod heard about their quest. Now, Herod was a paranoid ruler, and he didn't want anyone to threaten his rule. He even killed some of his family members, a wife and 3 of his sons, when he became suspicious of them. And he would have killed Jesus if the wise men had come back to him as he requested and told them where Jesus was. But since the wise men were warned in a dream not to return to him, Herod became enraged and decided to kill all the little children in Bethlehem that were 2 years old and younger. And it was at this point that Joseph received his second dream. This is Matthew chapter 2, and we'll read verses 13 to 15. Now after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there as long as I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up and took the child and his mother by night and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Out of Egypt I have called my son. So Jesus and his family became refugees, fleeing the country to save his life. Maybe the gifts that the wise men had brought enabled them to have enough finances to make this journey of over 400 miles. But they had to leave everything behind. Joseph's business, their home, their friends, everything they knew, to follow the leading of God. But Joseph didn't hesitate. As soon as he woke up from his dream, he took his family to safety because love moved him to protect. It's really important for us to be aware of the dangers facing our loved ones, the people that we have embraced. Are we willing to make radical adjustments to our life, to move way out of our comfort zone for their benefit if they need it? Our family once moved from one country to another for the good, especially of one of our family members, even though the timing seemed a bit rushed. And shouldn't we also be ready to help others who are fleeing for their family's safety? A lot of you have been praying with me and contributing to the children and families of Aleppo. Please don't forget them after Christmas is over. It's still an ongoing thing. And I believe that these people are very close to God's heart, because God has been one of them. Imagine that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus eventually settled into Egypt, and they probably learned to speak Egyptian and settled into a home and started working and made new friends, making the best of their situation. And then Joseph received another dream. Matthew chapter 2, verses 19 to 23. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled, and he will be called a Nazarene. So they're on the road again, and this time they're heading back to their homeland. I'm wondering if they had some mixed feelings about moving back to Israel after all they had been through. Israel hadn't been a very safe place for them, had it? And besides that, they probably changed and grown through all their experiences, speaking new languages, eating new food. They were probably different people. And they're wondering, am I going to fit in back home? Yet, Joseph follows God's leading again, and he brings his family back to their old hometown. This is where Mary was, where she grew up, where all the gossip probably was still just under the surface. People might not accept them or believe their story of how God was working in their lives. They might not even feel safe to share it. Maybe they felt like they had to keep everything really quiet to not stir up any suspicion against their little boy Jesus. So they had to go, and they started all over again, because love moves us to accompany each other. The ones that God entrusts and puts together in life. It was important for God's redemption plan for Jesus to grow up in Israel, and it might have been a lot easier for them just to stay in Egypt if they were willing to go. And our lives are intertwined with our family members too, aren't they? With our children, with our siblings, with our parents and our grandparents, and our friends. No matter how much God moves in our lives and how much we change, We're called to accompany each other through life, to be there for each other. It's something that we're often invited to do, especially at this time of year, to come back into one another's company. And sometimes going home can be one of the most challenging journeys of all. Home might be like your hometown, like it was for Joseph and Mary, or maybe it's church, coming back to what was like a home for you, or certain relatives, or for some of us, some friendships from long ago. But being willing to accompany the people that God calls us to love will show us what's needed. Sometimes some forgiveness is needed in the place that was our home. Sometimes some extra patience and grace because you've changed and they haven't, and you just need a lot of love to cover all the little bumpy places that rub against each other. But when God calls us to it, God will provide whatever we need to love well. Just ask for it and be open to receive it. God never runs out of enough love for any situation. So true love that comes from God, it moves us out of our comfort zones to embrace each other, to protect, to accompany through life's journey. So my question for you this morning is, how is the love of God that's inside of you inviting you to move this Christmas? Will you pray with me? Lord, you are a good God, and you are willing to move all the way from heaven to earth out of love for us. May your love inside of our hearts echo in our decisions and move us out of the places that are comfortable to see who is it that you are asking and inviting us to embrace, to protect, to be with. Help us to have the courage and love for you that we will step out in faith and believe that you will give us all we need for this challenge and for this joy. In Jesus' name, amen. Our Sunday hymn this morning is number 133 in the blue hymnal, Like a Child. Our regular Sunday service because it's Christmas, but we will want you to all come at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. We will have a traditional service of lessons and carols, and if you would like to participate by being a reader, please let me know as we fellowship in the vestry after the service. And now receive the benediction. May the Lord make you increase and abound in love for one another and for all. Amen.
Amen.